you're all very, very welcome along to Tipp GAA TV's Championship Show. On today's programme, I suppose we'll go to take a quick look back at the Tipperary versus Offaly game in Tullamore, and we look forward to what's going to be an epic encounter between Tipperary and Galway in the TUS Gaelic grounds this Saturday afternoon. I'm joined today on Tipp GAA TV by Eamon Corcoran, former Tipperary hurler, Michael Dundon, formerly, I suppose, of the Tipperary Star, and we have a special guest as well this evening on the show, London GAA PRO Charlie Evans. And Charlie, you've been flown over by the Tipperary County Board by an enormous expense to talk about the game, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think you may have had something to do with my expenses, so hopefully that's all going to go through.
Anyway, okay, we'll move along fairly swiftly there. Anyway, and just you're very welcome, Charlie, and we'll get it cracking. So, I suppose, lads, we'll just take a quick look back maybe at the Offaly game in Tullamore. It was, I suppose, everybody tipped Tipperary to win, and they did that, and they'd done it very, very easily. Final score of 738 to 318. Was that something that Eamon, you would have envisaged, I suppose, before the game started, that it would have been that easier? Wouldn't you have expected that Offaly would have put up a bigger challenge to Tipperary?
I suppose looking at Offaly against Carlow, you would expect a bounce back from them. They didn't really perform very well that day, but I was probably going more to see where Tipperary were in all of this, because I know we haven't been talking since the Waterford game. Like everything that we saw so good in Tipperary, that Waterford outing was everything that was probably we never saw in a Liam Cahill team, and just it was great to see that bounce back ability. Because that day against Waterford, albeit it is mentally, it's a hard match to go into. You know what I mean? When Waterford, a number had left the panel, you were playing a sub goalie, gone into a sweeper system. So it was kind of a crazy day, and it turned out to be a crazy day with the way we played, with the intensity, like the work rate, our forwards, everything they were so good at throughout the year, taking our goal chances. It was so flat, but so going to watch us against Offaly, I think that's what we're going out to see where we're Tipperary. And in fairness, like we were hot favourites going there, but like we really saw that bounce back ability. To go back and score the 7 goals, it was great. But like Offaly, look, I know you can get in a conversation about why they were there, but they were so far off. Even physically, since the two teams are out in the field, I was just looking at the physicality of both teams. It was seniors against juniors. And look, you don't want to stand on top of Offaly, like they have a great tradition and everything, but I think like they have a long way to go, and they have teams coming through. But from a Tipp point of view, I think that's all we can look at. Like we're still in the championship. Offaly are gone now. I think they'll go back, they'll lick the wounds, and they'll have a look at where they are. But from our point of view, there was a huge amount of positives on the day, and I think that's all we can take from it. Like scoring the 7 goals, and look, you want to call out Seamus Callahan getting his 40 championship goal. I don't know, will that ever be bit, because I don't think he scored any from frees, or it was all from play. Yeah. So like, and it was super overall. But I said now we'll look forward to it next week.
Yeah, and Charlie, if you ask yourself there, you know, looking in at the game, and I know that you analysed Tipperary GAA very, very closely. You know, some very good scorers, some high scorers in that Tipperary attack against Offaly. You know, Jason Ford 2-11, Mark Keogh 3-3 picking up man of the match, Jake Morris and Conor Staken. So, like from a Tipperary point of view, that has to be pleasing that those guys are their eye seems to be back in now. They're scoring, but it's going to be a different kettle of fish, obviously, on Saturday.
Yeah, completely. Obviously, Galway represent a much more difficult task than Offaly would, and I think, as Eamon touched on it, there was quite a dip in our performance in the Waterford game, and to then follow that up by scoring 738, which was the highest tally that any team's ever recorded in a championship game. I think that says a lot about how the players reacted, and hopefully they can carry on that form into the Galway game. Yeah,
and Michael, for yourself, you know, it was good. It was, as we said, it was hard to judge Tipperary in that game, but like it would have, they did appear to look an awful lot more energetic and a lot more hungry in the Offaly game than they did against Waterford.
Certainly, Jonathan. But first, let me just say it was great to see Charlie here with us. Charlie topped his class in college, journalism college, and has graduated with top degrees. And he'll be putting a lot of us to shame very well as it goes along. And I met him last year when he was here staying with his grandfather, I think, Pat Cullen, who will be well known to everyone. And you might know him yourself, Jonathan, so you would.
Vaguely, Michael, vaguely.
And it is lovely to see him here, and he's very welcome. And to take up your point on the thing, I thought Tipp in the first 20 minutes were absolutely on fire. They were ruthless against. They went through. The match was over after 20 minutes. I mean, it is all good vibes and that. I would have a reservation about it, and this happened again. It has happened in a few matches. We're conceding huge scores. I mean, what Offaly actually scored against us would have won some matches. I won't say a lot of matches, but would have some matches. And that's something, I know 2 of the goals came off a freeze, which are something that, that happened and that kind of thing. But I'd say it is something that Liam Cahill will be addressing, because you're now down to the stage where you won't get away against Galway, or if we're lucky enough to get over that against other teams with what we might have got away with against Offaly.
Yeah, and as you said, it's going to be a totally different kettle of fish, for want of a better word, against Galway, and so maybe we'll look towards the Galway game now, and obviously the team has been named, but we'll just go through that, just through the team that is named by Liam Cahill and his selection committee to face Galway in Limerick on Saturday. So in goal it's Rhys Shelley, the full back line of Cathal Barrett, Michael Breen and Owen Connolly, the half back line Brian O'Mara, centre back Ronan Maher and Dan McCormick on the other wing. Centre field pairing then of Conor Stakelum and Noel McGrath, and in the half forward line then we have Alan Tynan, Jason Ford and Seamus Kennedy, and in the Tipperary full forward line Jake Morris, Seamus Callanan and Mark Keogh. So just one change then, lads, from the team that played against Offaly, and it's a change with Cathal Barrett coming in, and obviously it's great. I think lots of people delighted to see Cathal coming back, but obviously there is a downside on that with replacing Craig Morgan, who obviously picked up that injury in the Offaly game, but we wish him well and hopefully he'll be back to full health very, very soon. Eamon, your thoughts on the team?
Yeah, I think we saw Craig going off the last day. We probably feared that he mightn't talk the next day, but on the positive, I don't know that many of us expect Craig to be back, so it's fantastic to see him back there and get through as much as possible, but unfortunately he went off with the injury. Like, to have Cathal back now, Cathal Barrett back, that's a huge lift to Tipperary. I make no secret, I'm a huge fan of Cathal Barrett. I just think the services given Tipperary over the years is second to none. I'd say you could write in the back of a stamp the number of 4 games Cathal has had for Tipperary, but it's probably more so the matchup with Cathal coming back in there. I think, I could be wrong, will he pick up Conor Whelan? He was very strong the last day, so from a matchup point of view, I think it's a big boost. And after that, I didn't envisage any other changes there. But it's good to see in the bench there. I see Niall O'Mara. He didn't get game time the last day. Garrod O'Connor came on for great to see John McGrath getting his goal the last day. John Campion got his first run out. So, like, when you look overall, it's a very, very strong team and panel to face Galway on Saturday.
And Michael, I'm sure you'd concur with him, and it's it's just one change, so it shows that Liam Cahill now is starting to maybe settle on a starting 15 and a team that he's happy with as we enter into the business end of the championship.
Yeah, I would say, looking at it, is near enough to be what most people would regard as our strongest 15. I thought perhaps Garrod O'Connor might get a starting spot, but when you look at what they scored the last day, and you say to yourself, well, who you leave out to accommodate him? And it's great to have somebody like Garrod O'Connor, John McGrath, and guys like that on the bench, Conor Bowe as well, ready to come in. I mean, this famous expression, strength and depth. We're beginning to get that, and a lot of these guys have got match time in between the league and this championship campaign, and any of them coming in seem to be able to contribute fairly handsomely when they do come in. So you'll be optimistic enough about that. For another thing that strikes me about it is that we've had different players on different days who have kind of come up trumps, like Marky Ho, as you say, got man of the match the last day. Conor Stakelum, I thought, had a fine game midfield. I think he had 5 points from midfield. You had Alan Tyne in the previous day. So that our options are broadening all the time, and that can only be good. particularly now that we're down to this stage of the championship. This is the real business from now on.
And Charlie, from Liam Caha's point of view, heading into the game, what's he going to be looking from the players? What's he going to be saying to the players? As they leave the dressing room, heading onto the field, what's he going to ask them to do? For both themselves and as a unit, like what will he want from them?
Well, I think he'll say to them to leave everything on the field. I mean, with the disappointing end that Galway had to the Leinster final, I'm sure Henry Shefflin will be having them pumped up for the game and bringing a great intensity to the game, and we'll have to match that and go further. I think also we conceded 3 goals to Offaly, which is, even though we still put up a big score, that is still quite a lot of goals. And if we are to win, then we will have to keep our defence really tight and defend as a unit. And I think when you look back, we played Cork and we conceded 4 goals, and then there are a few question marks. Do we keep conceding goals? We conceded 3 against Clare in the first game, but then we played Limerick and we kept our only clean sheet of the season. So I think that when the pressure comes onto the players, they do respond, and the chance to get into an All-Ireland semi-final, the players will have to be up for it.
Exactly, yeah, and they'll have to be up for it. And as you said, Galway coming off that defeat Eamon in the Leinster final, 4-21 to 2-26. That last gasp goal by Cillian Buckley, from a Galway point of view, that was heartbreak, really, wasn't it?
It was, and I'd say for the week afterwards, and Henry made no secret afterwards about the disappointment in the dressing room, and that is hard to rebound from. And it was just interesting, you talk about all the training you do and the best hurlers in the country. There was a clips for 30 seconds there, and even TJ Reid couldn't put his hand on the ball. And you train for those moments that actually when the pressure comes on, you're tired, you're to make the right decisions. And I think Galway, every decision they made in that ruck was wrong. And even Pádraig Mannion, I don't know, will he ever kick a ball better in his life again? But I was surprised, actually. He did an interview 2 days afterwards, and he said he still believes he made the right decision. Yeah, I question that, you know what I mean? But look, Galway, just go back to what Michael said there. I always feel you're going well when you're starting to settle on a team with 1 or 2 changes. And I'm starting to really see what we have there now with just the 1 change. I don't know, does Henry know the best Galway team yet? His big decisions there with Garrod McInerney, fullback, and Dahi Burke 6. He may change after the weekend. Dahi Burke, I think, is probably a better fullback, and Garrod McInerney, I just don't see him as a natural 3. So I think Henry probably, in one way, if they had to win the game, it would have brushed over a lot of cracks because they didn't hurry for a lot of the game and they came back. So, and the positive for him, he probably got a chance to really do a deep dive, get under the bonnet and see actually where the issues are and make changes. Where that could be the positive for him, because if they had to scrape over the line, they probably would have been celebrating. Everything was grand. So I think on the flip side, he would have done a lot of homework with his management team, and the players would have done soul searching to get themselves right for next day.
And of course, you know Henry very, very well, and you know how he prepared himself for matches. So he's not, as you said, he's going to prepare this team to go to war. It's going to be war. And I think, I don't know, I saw somewhere on social media or something, one of the former Galway lads kind of more or less said what they hate Tipperary. That's fair, that's fine, sure. That's probably just rivalry. I wouldn't read into that, but it's going to be an all-out intensive battle, isn't it, really?
It is, yeah. I was listening to him, the former goalie. And you know what, I love the honesty too, because I often say in Tipperary, it depends where you're living. We board everyone, so we probably hate everyone hates us, so we'll take that. So there is going to be rivalry there, but you're right, Henry's a winner. You could see him in the line, and it was difficult, I think, for himself, and he looking up the line, he born, bred Kilkenny through and through. So look, come here, he's down doing the job in Galway. I'd say he needed that. Galway needed that Leinster final. They didn't get it. So it's for himself and the Galway team, Saturday is huge. But they do raise their game. Like when you look over the last number of results of the last number of years, it has been 50-50. We have struggled probably more times than not against the Galway team. So they'll be ready for us. So I've no doubt the first 5-10 minutes of this game is going to be war.
Yeah, and Michael, as Eamon said, previous games, previous encounters, championship matches, 31 previous championship matches between Tipp and Galway. Tipp have won 22, they've lost 9. But there's never been a draw. But in 6 of the games, there's been only 1 point between both teams. So that'll tell you, like, there's very little between either side. And, you know, Galway bring out the best in Tipp. Tipp bring out the best in Galway.
Yeah, that's right. But and the lads are talking, and I mean, I understand it, that Galway, you know, the disappointment of the Leinster final will make things difficult for them. But the other side of that coin is it could be just the motivation, the need, having been caught on the run in there, as you say, with a succession of mistakes. Defensively, 2 or 3 lads had the ball in their hand and dropped it, and then it was kicked away, and on top of that, then nobody came to challenge Killian thing coming through with the ball. So Galway have a lot to atone for, if you like, this thing, and that could be a huge motivation to them when they play on Tipperary, and to something that we shouldn't underestimate. I mean, we found that the day against Waterford. Waterford had got a drubbing before that, and they came out and they had a right good go at us, and we weren't able to. Now, I know we were after having the Limerick match the week before and had taken its toll on us. But what I'd say is you never underestimate a wounded animal, and Galway are in that mood now. And as you've said, our history is that there's never been much between us anyway in recent times, and they've done as well as we've done. So I think that not unless we have to be on our mettle. I would love to see all lads starting like they started against Offaly, with that hunger and that drive and that pace, and fellas doing that sort of thing. And maybe if you can do that, it might enkindle doubts in their minds that, you know, is this is going to be another bad day for us, and it could help us on the way.
And I suppose we can look back now again at maybe our own side and our own team, and, you know, if you take one of the main lines of attack, our full forward line. I mean, it is a fairly formidable full forward line. If you take what did they score in the match against Offaly, something like, was it 5 goals and 12 or 13 points or something like that between the three of them. Charlie, like that's a huge tally, but you know they're going to have to perform to the highest of their ability against Galway, even better than they played against Offaly. They mightn't score as much, quite obviously, against Galway, but they will have to perform at an even higher level and a more intensive level.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that Offaly game, for the most part, was pretty much like a challenge match, really. And that just won't be the case on Saturday. You mentioned Jake Morris's form this year has been remarkable. He's really stepped up as a player to lead the full forward line. And then Mark Keogh, when he got his chance, he's taken it and he's performing really well. Got a hat-trick the last day. I suppose, I mean, it's weird to think that maybe Seamus Callanan could be a potential weak link in the team. So obviously he's on the wrong side of 30 now. What's he, about 34? And even though we obviously put up a big tally the last day, he still only registered a goal. And I think maybe against Watford as well, when the ball was going into him, it wasn't sticking as much. But his class is known, and I think Seamus Callanan will really relish this game, and I think he could have a big say about who wins.
Great stuff.
On that, Jonathan, it just occurs to me, Seamus Callanan missed a lot of the earlier part of the campaign in the league and that sort of thing. And I would say that he's probably only really coming up to match pitch at this stage, and like he has the experience, and we certainly need it with the forward line. We'll say that you have kind of relative young lads in Alan Tyne and Jake Morris and Mark Keogh, that his experience will be wanted in there, and I'd have a great confidence in him to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, in fairness, I was just looking there. He in 2014 and 2015 he was top scorer against Galway. He scored 3-8 in 2014 and 3-9 in 2015. So
yeah,
it would take something like that on Saturday, I think, wouldn't we? 3-8 or 3-9 would be fairly reasonable. Is that a reasonable expectation?
We wouldn't be taking him off at that.
You know, but yeah. So I suppose. You know, there's going to be a huge crowd in Limerick. It's going to be massive. Obviously, a double header. For me, I don't really see the justification in a double header, to be honest, in this game. I just think that Tipperary, the supporters are really getting back behind Tipp now. It's after causing, I think, issues during the week with people trying to get tickets. Maybe even people that have been gone to some of the matches this year can't get tickets. To me, I don't know. I would have expected that they would have played maybe the 2 quarterfinals as single headers. Any views on that one?
Yeah, I was seeing can I get tickets here tonight. Actually, I'm still looking for tickets. I think it's crazy. Like Clare are going to bring a huge crowd. Clare have huge backing at the moment, albeit Dublin mightn't travel. But Tipp at the moment, and I said it earlier on, whatever Liam Cahill has done, he's instilled that whole belief back in the crowd. Even albeit we got a bit against Waterford and there was probably a bit of a downer, but we'd some turnout against Offaly the last day in the way. Like I was so surprised. I thought Offaly would actually bring a bigger crowd than us, but and Liam acknowledged it afterwards. So there is a buzz right around the county at the moment because they've bought into this set of players and they've bought into the work rate, the intensity, and even what I love at the moment, and I don't know who's doing it inside there. It could be Mikey Beavens with the forwards. The movement of our forward line at the moment, it's something that I saw under Eamon O'Shea. They were ghosting, they were off the shoulder. The person in the best position was getting the ball, and that's why we're putting up the scores. Every time we get it, the young lads are getting off their seat because we're going for goals. So there is a huge attraction to go and to watch Tipperary at the moment, and to put a double header on there on a Saturday, I don't know, it beggars belief, all right, yeah.
It does, because we've had mothers, fathers and kids going to games up to this, and they've got their tickets and there've been no issue. Now those kids are obviously, they've been at the matches, they want to go to the matches, and now what are we going to say to them? Sorry, you can't go to the match. Like, it's not really, I know this is probably a bit harsh, but it's not really promoting the game when you're putting people at a disadvantage not to be able to get tickets, Michael.
Well, further to that, Jonathan, I would actually take issue with the fact of playing the two of them on a Saturday. To me, I mean, having the matches on a Saturday rules out a lot of people who have to work on a Saturday, so they can't go there anyway. And an All-Ireland quarter-final is one of the top fixtures in the hurling calendar. And I would have said that those matches should have been on Sunday, or at best one on a Saturday and one on a Sunday, to give people a chance to go and to recognise, or if you like, or acknowledge the status of the games that are being played.
But Michael, just to also call out, Tipperary Camogie are playing in Wexford on Saturday. I think could be 4:00. Like, they have a huge following. They have to win the Munster final. There's a huge following for Camogie and Tipperary at the moment, and now they're after putting it on. Like a choice to make now, but I think that's a wrong call within that as well. The GAA, like, I absolutely agree, it should be on a Sunday, but I do think as well, like, look over we want to support all people, all codes in Tipperary, and to put on at the same time as the Camogie, I think is wrong as well.
And the ladies footballers are playing in Temple 2 at 2 o'clock, or at 2 o'clock. That's Sunday actually. Sorry, the ladies footballers are playing on Sunday at 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. If one thing I'd say about double headers is that I don't think it adds to atmosphere really. Like, if you're the second game, you're not necessarily going to be there for the first game, and then you have people coming in sort of maybe through the second half. Like, I think it was really noticeable last year when both quarterfinals were in Semple Stadium. I think Cork and Galway was the first game. Then you had Clare and Wexford on afterwards, and Semple Stadium, it just wasn't really full. Where if you had Clare Dublin, because Dublin hurling doesn't have the biggest following, maybe that could have been in Portlaoise or somewhere like that, and you could have filled out Portlaoise. Tipperary, Galway, it probably would have filled out the Gaelic grounds on its own. So I think realistically there should just be a bit more common sense applied to where games are put on.
Yeah, well,
the point, Jonathan, of the clashing between Camogie and ladies football and the hurling, they certainly need to do something, some kind of liaison between the three bodies to avoid that, because your families are caught up in it. Your families where there's brothers and sisters, a sister playing Camogie and the brother playing hurling or football, as the case may be. And I mean, the GAA would always have prided itself, and rightly so, on being a kind of a community-based organisation. And sure, the family is at the heart of the community. And if you have a son playing in Limerick and a daughter playing in Wexford or whatever, it is a difficult choice for families to be making. I don't think they should be subjected to it.
Oh, and it's happened, and I know even from a Lochmore point of view, you have like the McGraths, the Davidsons, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So their families are divided, and by those two families, all of them want to be at their match. So now they have to decide which is their match to go to, So that's unfortunate. But look at I do think, I suppose, as well, from the GAA's point of view in their defence, they do produce the fixture calendar very, very early in the year. And, maybe the other organisations need to take that on board and take it into account. And obviously we have seen fixture clashes between at very high level between Camogie and ladies football. So it's going on a while, and it does need to.
You've also had it where you had players involved in both Camogie and ladies football having to make choices, or playing one match at 2 o'clock and another match.
Last weekend the Galway girl, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, but look at and we won't be able to.
One side of it here.
Maybe the London lads could fix it for us, give us a few ideas. Yeah. But look at, I suppose, back to the match. I think we have a fair lot of it covered there now. As I said, it's going to be a huge. It's a huge match. It's a huge match for Tipperary. This is a. Obviously, it's a do or die game. Your season continues or your season ends, and that in itself brings pressure, doesn't it? Like, it brings huge pressure, and it's how you manage the pressure and what team will manage that pressure best. Yeah,
it does bring pressure. But you look at our lads this year, like they have. There's been huge games already for them with big support in there. So, like, the Limerick game was massive here, and we got a great response. The Cork game, a great response. Albeit we'll park the Waterford blip, the Offaly, the bounce back, and like just the intensity was back there. As Michael said, the first 10 minutes of that game, it was just wow. We really went for it, and that's I firmly believe, looking at the team, the panel, the atmosphere there at the moment. This is what these lads train for. This is really where we want. This is what championship is about. So, I'm really looking forward, and I firmly believe we're in a great place going into it.
Yeah, and I suppose we always talk, not in a bad way or anything, but we always maybe try and mention that, everybody involved with the game, and with that in mind, with John Keenan, the man in charge. To me, I think he's a fantastic referee. He lets the game flow. He uses, as you used that word a while ago, something as common sense. And I don't think Tipperary will be. They won't be dissatisfied or anything with the appointment of John Keenan. They'll be happy, and because they know his form, they know he's a good referee, and they know that he'll let the game flow, and there won't be any kind of maybe silly calls.
I just for Michael, and like, I just hope, and we can talk about referees and stuff. Like he played. It was the Munster final he did last year, and to me, he refereed the best match year, and it was the best match year because he just let the guys hurl. And then, I don't know, did he get a match after that? Was there an issue that he didn't stick to the rules? And I'm 100% not a referee basher. Johnny Murphy, the last, and I'll go back to Dan McCormack's incident. Like, that could have been huge, and he just nearly seeked the controversy there. John Keenan doesn't do that. He just went for it last. I just hope whatever happened last year, and there could have been reasons from not getting other games, I don't know, but I hope if he can referee like he did that Munster final, we're in for some game.
Yeah, and I think, it's unfortunate, and you're touching it there, there is pressure on referees. There's pressure put on referees. They're brought in on a Thursday night or whenever it is in Abbottstown. Their matches are reviewed, X, Y, Z, and all this kind of stuff. There's too much pressure, as you said, referees, he refereed that Munster final last year. He done a fantastic job. He let the game flow. He refereed it the way it should be refereed. And, that's the way referees should be allowed to referee, as the game should be played, and not kind of be under the thumb or be worried about the fella that's above in the stand with the little biro and ticking the boxes job, Michael.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say on it is that I think that basically all referees are very honest in the way they do the games. Now, they may not do it to your satisfaction, but I don't think any referee, no more than any player, goes out to have a bad game. He'll want to do it because he's conscious of his own reputation, I'm sure, and he'll want to do it as best he can. The second thing is, everybody has the experience, whether it is at club level or inter-county level, of maybe not too happy experiences with some referees. And when you see that they're down to do your match, now, present company accepted, of course, when we're talking about referees. But when you're down to see that they're down to your match, you kind of say, oh my God, we could have trouble here. But I think John Keenan's reputation is as good as there is in the game. And I wouldn't like us to be in a situation where we're looking to blame the referee. Absolutely. If things go against us. Yeah. It's up to us to get out and play the thing. And the thing about teams in the same way as you can recognise the way a team plays, you can recognise the way a referees, and you as a team manager, and I presume players, you have to adjust yourself. You say, well, this man will pull for everything, or this man lets it go, and you play your game accordingly and get on with it.
And Charlie, your own view on matters of a refereeing nature, like, you know, they can affect the game, but as Michael says, sometimes we look at these things through rose-tinted glasses because it affects us more than others.
Yeah, I mean, I've lost count the amount of times the final whistle goes and the team's lost, and the team's lost because of their own performance, but they're still just talking about the referee, when realistically you have 70 minutes there to impact the game yourself. Just to touch on John Keenan, for me anyway, the Munts final last year was one of the best games I've ever watched, and he completely added to that. You know, he basically left his whistle in his pocket for the whole game and just allowed physicality in the game, which we all want to see. And I think that hopefully he can do the same again on Saturday, and hopefully because he didn't get another game after the Munster final last year, hopefully that hasn't sort of changed the way he approaches games as well.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I mean, I saw him. He actually refereed the Watford game, didn't he, this year? The Tipp Watford game. If memory serves me correct, I think he refereed Tipp.
It's a good sign if we don't remember. That's always a good sign for refereeing.
Yeah,
But and the other thing that Eamon mentioned there about the Dan McCormack incident in that match, my initial reaction when I saw it, I said, just that's harsh. So it is. But when I saw the thing later on television, and the thing, he was behind coming in on the tackle. Now, whether it merits a black card or just a free, is debatable. Referee possibly considered that the player was bearing down on goal and that he was preventing a goal chance, that kind, and that may have influenced.
Yeah, and I was just surprised when there was two players in front. Like, I get if it was 1-on-1, and look, that's the rule. Obviously, it was a goal. He had a shot at goal, so I was a bit probably puzzled by it at the time, and it could have been the right call. It was a strange call when there was two players still in front of the goalie who could have blocked the ball. It was a yellow card, a black card, and a penalty. I suppose, look, we got the rubber greens a few years ago against Clare where we got a penalty, so it depends if you're buying or selling these situations.
Yeah, but there was an incident in the second half, then involving Tipperary, and there was no black card. So it comes back down to consistency probably, but then again it also comes back down to us looking at it from a Tipperary point of view.
Yeah, well, consistency is the big thing, I think, Jonathan. I think that's what most people look for. Either a referee is very strict or he lets it go. But if you have a mixture, then you're in trouble, because nobody kind of knows that. And they always argue, God, he penalised our fella for that and he didn't penalise the other, So consistency is the thing.
And I suppose talking about consistency, that's what Liam Cahill is going to be looking for from the players, as we said. Consistency to get to the pitch and of the game from the start, and to continue that pitch, especially again at the start of the second half. It's something that we kind of maybe we in some of the games we kind of maybe didn't get to the pitch again at the start of the second half. So, but they have been coming, haven't they, Eamon? Like,
yeah. And we've always said it. Said the last number of weeks and months with Liam Cassidy. We're at our very best when our work rate, our intensity levels are up. We just when we're playing the faces. I love to see Alan Tyne against Cork. He was bouncing around the place. He was hitting off lads. We never saw any of that against Waterford, and it's that consistency level where we need to get to the pitch that every time you're going watching Tipperary now, you know what you see is what you're going to get. Where the Waterford thing will probably set us all back to say, oh geez, we've highs, we've lows, so we just need to make sure. I think we're getting consistency in the team. We're starting to name at the moment. The panel, the same players are there, but it's just what we look for now at the moment is that work rate, intensity, and in their face hurling. And I think Liam has brought that. And it's just to make sure that follow on from the Waterford, that Offaly game. I just love the first 10 minutes of that game. You alluded to the start, Michael. That was really, we set the tone.
Yeah, the thing about, I think the Waterford match, the big influence in the Waterford match was the match against Limerick the week before. I think that drained us hugely. Now, I think that since that, we have had the Offaly match, if you like, as a warm-up after being beaten in previous, so that gives us a chance to we should just getting better. We should be now as we move along. They had a bit of a rest. They had a relatively easy game warm up, so it was like lads show jumping, to give them an easy jump first and then to put them onto the big ones. So now we're onto the big ones and hopefully we'll be able to drive on.
Yeah, and Charlie, like, I suppose all the attention probably goes from a management point of view to the manager, like Liam Cahill, but like he has built a very good team around him, like, with Mikey Beavens and Declan and Paddy and TJ and of course Tony Brown, like, and that's hugely important as well, that a manager has those people to fall back on and to work on, that the players can see that these guys are really buying into this as well on their behalf.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like that backroom team has loads of experience. Maybe obviously Paul Di Maha, not experienced as a coach particularly, but you look at what he did on the field and what he contributes as well. And I think that will stand to them if say we do go down into a position where we are a few points down. There's people on the sideline who have the knowledge to think, how can we turn this back in our favour? And I think that, as you say, it is really important that Liam Cowell has built not only a strong panel, but he has got a strong backroom team with him. There's also one thing, you spoke about consistency of Tipperary. I think looking at Galway, consistency is something that they've struggled with particularly. Like, what was it? They were 12 points down to Dublin at one stage. Okay, they brought it back, but then in the Leinster final, they started well, and then Kilkenny got on top, and then Kilkenny went about 8 points up, and then Galway brought it back again. They've not really played throughout a game when they've been tested. They've not really dominated the game. And I think that's something that obviously Henry Shefflin will really be looking for them to do, to stamp their authority on the game as well. Yeah,
but and the other side of that, I suppose, maybe is that, while they did go behind in a number of the games, they did come back. Yeah. So from a Tipperary point of view, it means even if you get 5, 6, 7, 8 points ahead, you can't take your foot off the pedal. Sure, you can't.
Yeah, completely correct. And that's the thing. Like, especially that first half against Dublin that Galway had, they were pretty poor realistically, and then they obviously brought it back. And that's something that Liam Cowell will need to be saying to the players, that even if you build up a big lead, look at what Galway have done in the championship so far, and it's you will only win the game by carrying on for the full 70 minutes.
Perfect.
And Charlie's right in that. There's the whole thing like this. When they're good, they're very good, and then they can be very bad in between, and you have to be geared to cope with that even if you're, as you say, well on top, that there's a kick in them, and you have to be ready to deal with that.
And like, they do have some very important forwards too, don't they? Like, Evan Nyland and is he?
Cooney.
Yeah, exactly. So like, they have the potential to be very, very good and to overcome any team, really, don't they? If it clicks for them, and there's nothing to say, but it won't click for them on Saturday.
They've 6 forwards there. Like, if you look at the last, like Tom Monaghan, Conor Cooney, Kevin Cooney, Conor Whelan, Brian Concannon, and Evan Nyland, like, they were probably under day. They're all match winners. These guys can hurl, and if you give them space and let them hurl, they're a bit like Cork hurlers at times. If it turns into a loose game, free for all, these lads will punish every time. I think Conor Whelan, like, you talk about consistency, and every time I watch him, I actually think he could be hurler of the year. I think he's one of the greats out there. But then you can go out another days and you watch him and go, is Conor playing? Like the last day, he had a super game. But that's consistency. He's up, he's down. Same with Conor Cooney there at 11. Like, there's pockets of brilliance in Conor. You can see him at club level, what he can do. So that's why I think we just need to make sure at any stage, if we let our guard drop, or we drop our intensity and we go for that 5-6 minute break, they could put up 2 or 3 goals. And that's when we spoke earlier on about us conceding goals. By God, this is a team that will punish you. If we make mistakes, they will put up a big score against us.
Absolutely, yeah. And look at, we hope and we go in, I suppose, relative confidence, hopefully, to Limerick, that we can overcome this hurdle, and the bus will be heading towards Dublin, please God, in a couple of weeks' time, and we wish him the well, and we hope to see we know there's going to be a big Tipperary turnout. We know by the response and the people out there looking for tickets, and that again, and I can say it from the inside talking out, that is really, really appreciated. And you, as a player, Eamon, to be fair, when you're like, there's nothing more, I suppose, uplifting in the middle of a field. If you're struggling, if you're out of breath or whatever, if you get down, that the crowd gets behind you and it gives you that lift, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's as much even travelling into the stadium there.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I go back, and I suppose the times, it was 2000, 2001, you'd be driving up in Park Equive, going up through the crowds, and just the Tipp supporters, the bus would be rattling, you're going in into the stadium. Like, that gives you a huge lift. Like, albeit when you're out in the field and you hear this buzz and stuff like that, but it's as much going in that you go, you know what, there's some crowd here supporting us today. And that's why I think Liam is 100% right. He put out a rally call there earlier on the year, and Tipp supporters have responded. But they've responded because the team have responded.
Yeah, and the team have given them to something to shout about and to respond to them with, like, and you know that it's positive now. Everything about Tipperary really is positive, and you know, while as you said there was that little setback with Waterford, but in the main it's positive, isn't it, Michael and Charlie?
It is, and the thing about it is, in one way, the Waterford thing was no bad experience, because it teaches fellas that things can go wrong, and no matter how well prepared you are, or no matter how much you've done your sums and kind of figured out the opposition, these things can happen on games, and Tipp would presumably learn from the Waterford game how you have to cope with days when things like that go wrong. And that could be very important in a game like Sunday's against Galway, a team who can, if they get a run on you, as Eamon has said earlier on, they can do a lot of damage very quickly. And you need to be on your toes to deal with it.
And I suppose, Charlie, like, you know, if we maybe look a little bit at your own experiences in London, like, I'm sure it's from a London point of view, supporters are at a premium probably for games, but the supporters that do come, and I suppose you could put it on a par with maybe, or on a level with maybe our Tipperary footballers, like, you know, that when the team nearly get to know the supporters, they know who they are, and in fairness, like the Tipperary hurlers, they have a good relationship and know a lot of their supporters too. But like, it's probably in London, I'd imagine it's harder. It's a huge area, like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive area, and as much as I'd say the GAA is strong in London, it's obviously not like it is over here. And I know when our hurlers this year were a puck of a ball away from getting to the Christie Ring final. We had 2 home games. I think the first home game was against Meath, and we won. That was the only game Meath lost this year. And then when we had the opportunity against Derry, we lost in the end by 2 points. The crowd came out. I think I saw people there that maybe I only saw at football matches throughout the entire year. I think it just shows that the impact that a crowd can have. And I think it was quite noticeable in the league semi-final when we played Limerick. I don't think the Tipperary crowd naturally didn't come out as much for that game. It was in the Gaelic grounds, and I think just after half-time, the Limerick crowd really got into the game, and Limerick got on top of us. I think if, as you say, if ticket sales are good from a Tipperary perspective, then I think the crowd will play a big part in the game on Saturday. Yeah,
and is there any truth in the rumour that you've brought in transfer papers for Eamon Corcoran there to head to London there next year?
Well, I don't know, I suppose.
Is that to play football or hurling?
No,
yeah.
I heard it was the Brackens getting the papers. Get rid of them.
Swiftly moving on.
but it's kind of interesting, and I know obviously we're closely related, Charlie, and I know the work that you would say that goes into football and hurling in the likes of London. It's very difficult, but we talk about Tipperary. There has been a number of Tipperary players that have played with London, both hurling and football. I think it's more so football this year, hasn't it been?
To be honest, I'd say hurling. I don't think on the football panel there was anybody from Tipperary, but on the hurling panel there was that I know of. There was 2 players. You had Fikra O'Keefe from Clonalty Rossmore. He was mainly a sort of super sub this year, and you had Owen Ryan from Lockmore Castleiney. He was starting wing back, and he was one of our best players this year. And I mean, from my perspective anyway, I like to see the Tipperary players involved with London.
Yeah, I remember for years with the London footballers, Evan Byrne from Templemore, he was a goalkeeper out there for years. Yeah,
there has always been a great loyalty to the games in London with the Irish people. And a good many years ago, when I was still playing with our club, we went over as guests of the Tipperary Association in Stevenage, actually, and we played a couple of matches over there, and there was great support. I mean, the quality. The hurling wasn't out of the top drawer, but it was great support, and you could see how much it meant to the people over there. Now, we weren't probably the best attraction in the world, but we were there anyway, and we had a ball, and it was great to see that they're still going strong in London.
Absolutely, and your own club, Round Towers, isn't it, Charlie? Going very well as well over there at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say Round Towers is a football-only club, and we're sort of part of the big four in London football, really, alongside Tyrconnell Gales, St Kiernan's and Fulham Irish. We'd be unique in the sense that we're a South London club. Most of the clubs in London are in the north and the west of the county, and that basically means that we have to travel quite far for games most of the time. Like, the games might be only maybe 10 miles away, but that's like 2 hours on public transport to get across London. I think, I mean, as you say, we're ticking along nicely, shall we say, and I hope from a Round Towers perspective, I have a lot of excitement about maybe winning a county title for the first time in 41 years this year.
That'll be good, and I'm sure you'll return the favour. You'll play for my flights over to watch that game.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But anyway, we'll move on a little bit, and maybe we'll just talk a little bit about some of the other games that are on this weekend. And obviously, as well, then we look forward to. We'll talk about this in a lot more detail as it happens. But the draws for the first round of the county championships were made as well this week. So that's something to look forward to. And I'm sure, from your own point of view, J.K. Bracken's really, really training hard and training strong at the moment in preparation for the county championships that are imminent, really.
Yeah, and it was great to see the draws during the week, because I think you can talk about the county championship. It's not until the draw is made and you know who you're playing that you really start to zone in on it, because I think the draws are made early on the year, or the groups, but then, like we see with the Brackens, we've got Mullinahone straight away. So Mullinahone and obviously Braxton focus on each other. Right, we've got some huge ties. Like, I think, and I've always said this for the last number of years, in fairness to the county board, we've really nailed the top 16, the championship in Tipperary at the moment. And we're so quick to criticise different championships over the year, but like the last number of years, the top 16 to stay up there, great to come out of the group, but even to stay in the top 16 for any team is nearly achievement at the moment. And then the teams that are coming up, so it's gone so competitive. Like, I'd struggle even looking through the predictions for the first round to pick a number of winners, because they're so tight.
Yeah, that's that. And the key, of course, is all the clubs will tell you: win your first match. It takes the pressure off you to some degree. If you lose the first one, you're on the back foot straight away, and there's no room for error after that. But it's a system that has worked to perfection, I think, and you have the top 16. And the interesting thing about it, looking at the top 16, you could probably pick out 8 and say they're potential county champions if they get it going and get it right. And that's it's great for the championship.
And it's also important as well, Charlie, like that, the county championship, as you have your groups of 4, but there's still that link there between the divisions and the county, and it has been important to some clubs in the last couple of years, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I think, looking on from my perspective, I'm a big fan of the divisional championships. I think clubs need more than one thing that they can aim for to win, and I'm sure Eamon knows when Brackens won their first mid-title this year, I'm sure, or last year rather, they had a big celebration in the end.
Eamon is still celebrating, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
And actually, believe it or not, it's only, we never got to a final, and the divisions, you're nearly kind of, what's the story with the divisions? But when you get to a final and you win it, by God, do you know what it means? It was huge, but for a few years there, you kind of go, when you haven't been involved in are the divisions, are they working? Because you can see where the west and the south has gone. But if you're in the north and the mid, and you win the mid title or north title, I tell you one thing, it means so much.
And I think nobody should underestimate the value of a divisional championship medal to any player, and you know, a lot of clubs, it may be they may not be good enough to win a county final. They may be unlucky that they don't win it, and when they look back and they say, well, we won the mid or the north, or whichever case it may be, as you said, the west and the south divisional championships have kind of become, I don't know what you could say about them, and it maybe makes people think, should we abandon divisions? But like Charlie said, I would have always been a great fan of the divisions, and was happy enough to pick up a few divisional medals in the time, and I'd say a lot of players would be the same.
But there's nothing to say then. Like, I know that at the moment in the west and the south, they're a small bit behind. But there's nothing to say that they'll raise the bar. The teams and the clubs in the intermediate and the Premier intermediate, they'll come back up and they'll raise the bar, and they'll have even as good divisional championships as they have in the north and the mid. And I mean, the divisional championships in the west and the south, while there's not too many teams in them, the games can be very competitive. So you know what I mean. It's just that they're short in teams at the moment.
Clonalty would fancy their chances against anyone in the championship at the moment, and you look at Killinall and you say they shouldn't be where they are. They should be up challenging for the top honours that they're down. Mullinahone are there. So I mean, you have the teams in the division. Cashel would hope to be a common team, given the success they've had back along the way. So there's a great argument for keeping the divisional championship, even though there is an opinion out there that they should be done away with. I certainly wouldn't agree with it.
But I do think the link is great too, because you look at, you'll get your group and you look at the group, like we were very fortunate last year. We came third, but we preliminary quarter final at the back of winning division. So I know the teams in the north and the mid, you look at some of the groups there at the moment, they're going to go for that championship because there is a safety net there.
What's one of the groups? Is Killarang and Torres Sarsfield,
Bursley and Canalty.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, you want to win the division championship before you go into it.
This famous group of that surely has to be it. You have 4 teams there that would fancy themselves.
Four teams that have all won the county title in like the last 6 years.
That's right, yeah.
And you mentioned 8 teams in particular, 4 of them are in their top 8.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So that's really something to look forward to, and as the championships comes up, we'll cover that each round in more detail ahead of each round, as they say. So, but also this weekend, Eamon, your second most favourite team, the Tipperary Camogie team, in action in Wexford on Saturday. As you said, it's a clash, so you obviously we can't go to both games, but I'm sure preparations really going well. They played very, very well, didn't they, in the rag in that first match against Dublin?
They were fantastic against Dublin, and look, they need a big performance on this weekend, like Kilkenny and Wexford last day drew. That was kind of a surprise. Wexford put up 3-10, but if you go back to the Tipp Dublin game, like at half time Tipp had 1-12, put up to 2 points, and then they finished with the score 2-19. But like we talk about standards in different codes. The standard of Camogie in Tipperary at the moment is gone to another level, and the juniors are on a great run, as well at the moment. But even the last day, it's just the style of play. Like for me, I hadn't seen much of her before, but Karen Blair was playing number 5. Like she was outstanding wing back. But Teresa Ryan in the middle of the field, like she's a link player. The ball is just going through the line the whole time with her, and obviously again Caught Devan and Grace O'Brien aside. So they're playing. They're in a great place. But this weekend, I'd say Dennis and the backroom team are under no illusions. Like they're going into a huge battle against Wexford.
And another player that always stood out to me is Karen Kennedy.
Karen Kennedy. Karen was injured last year, and like she's probably been the player of the year so far for Tipperary. She was 6th the last day, and like she was brilliant again. But I think last year her injury, Karen from Thurles, like her injury, she was a huge loss to Tipperary last year, and I think we probably underestimated. But since she's come back this year, but it's not just the way Karen is playing this year. Like Mary Ryan came on the last year was great. Mary's around for a number of years. Like she came on with 10-15 minutes to go. Like we talk about Tipperary having a good bench and the hurling, they have a great bench and the Camogie as well.
Yes, and we wish them the very very best of luck on Saturday. And if they come away with a win against Wexford, that's going to set them really well up in the championship. Also, the Tipperary ladies footballers, they're out in action on Sunday at 2:00 in Temple against Galway. And that's another game, and I'm going to go to that game, and something I'm really looking forward to that game. And again, the footballers, they've peaked and they've troughed or whatever, and you'd be hoping that that they can keep going on an upward curve, and it'd be interesting, and I hope to see a good crowd there to support them as well, Michael. Yeah,
well, Peter Creedon has done a great job with that team this year. I saw them playing Limerick, I think it was below in Fethard, and they all were there, and I was very impressed. I wouldn't have seen, I've seen very little ladies football, to be honest with you, because fixtures are clashing and what have you. But I was very impressed with the standard of play, of both teams in that day. And you'll be looking forward to a very good game against Galway, and it will be a great one to win for Tipperary.
Charlie, I might be putting you a small bit on the spot now. I'm not sure of your knowledge of ladies football or Camogie, but I'm sure maybe Temple Tui might be on the radar for yourself on Sunday afternoon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm only here for a few days, and any game, whether it's obviously on Saturday with the men's team or any game that I can go to, I'd like to go to. It's the same when I sort of come in the summer as well. I like to go to any sort of level of game, whether that be, my granddad is the Lockmore Junior C hurling manager, so I like to go along to those games and have a look at
Did you
who's
ask you to
performing
bring
well.
your stuff with you?
Have a look at the lad behind the camera there, maybe, is it?
Suit of armour.
Did he ask you to bring your stuff with you?
Yeah, I'd say he still wouldn't bring me on even for 10 minutes or something like that.
But anyway, look, it's great to have you, Charlie. I'm delighted, and I think, as Michael said earlier on, you've qualified as a journalist, and you're working very, very hard. And I've seen a number of tweets from the London manager, Michael Ryan, and you've formed a very good bond with him as well. And you're welcome here anytime. That's really it, I think, lads. We've given it a good coverage. We look forward to the big match in Limerick. And we hope and pray that we'll be back here in a week or two's time previewing an All-Ireland semi-final. So, once again, Eamon, Michael and Charlie, thanks very much for joining us on Tipp GAA TV, and we look forward, please God, to be talking to you, as I said, in a week or two, as we hopefully look forward to that All-Ireland semi-final. So, from Tipp GAA TV and myself, Jonathan Cullen, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again very soon.